My cheating wife panicked and begged for forgiveness, but she will face the consequences she deserves. 7 months ago, everything I knew about my marriage crumbled in front of me. It all began with a text message, seemingly innocent at first, just a message from an unknown number. But that was the moment everything changed. At first, I shrugged it off, dismissing it as just another random spam message that we all get from time to time. But the thought of it stayed with me. A seed of doubt was planted, and the more I tried to ignore it, the more it lingered, growing stronger, like a dark cloud following me around, never leaving. Days passed, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I kept telling myself that I was overthinking it. Rachel, my wife of 6 years, had always been loving, devoted, and seemingly perfect in every way. Sure, like any marriage, we had our struggles, small things, the usual stress that comes with life, but I never imagined that our relationship could be shattered by something so simple as a text. Yet, here I was, caught in a web of suspicion that I couldn't escape. Then came the phone call. I had been out with my buddies one night, grabbing drinks and laughing at stupid jokes like we always did. I was trying to unwind, to get away from the weight of everything that had been bothering me lately. When I came home that night, Rachel was acting strange. The energy in the house felt different, colder. The look in her eyes was distant, and she couldn't meet my gaze. She kept talking about work, but there was something in her voice, a nervousness, an anxious energy I hadn't seen in years. She went on, rambling about deadlines and office meetings, but I couldn't focus on her words. Instead, I was focused on the subtle shifts in her demeanor. Why wasn't she looking at me? Why was she avoiding eye contact? I didn't say anything at first, trying to push my nagging thoughts to the back of my mind. But then, the phone rang. It was from a name I didn't recognize. I watched her face change as soon as she saw the incoming call. It was as if she saw a ghost. Her posture stiffened, and she quickly excused herself from the room. I could hear her voice, muffled, as she stepped into another room to take the call. My heart raced, but I forced myself to breathe, telling myself that it was nothing. But I couldn't ignore it. Something inside me snapped. It was as though my body was no longer my own, and I had no control over the questions that started flooding my mind. Who was that? Why didn't she want me to hear? The call ended, and Rachel returned, but the tension in the room only grew. I tried to act normal, to pretend like everything was fine, but the seed of doubt had been watered, and it was growing rapidly. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Over the next few days, I found myself watching Rachel more closely, trying to pick up on anything that felt off. I noticed things, small details that didn't add up. There was the perfume on her clothes, a scent I didn't recognize, lingering like a trace of someone else. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Then, there were the late nights, when she would lock herself in the bedroom, texting endlessly. She'd tell me it was work, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I wanted to trust her. I really did. Rachel had been my rock for so many years, and the thought of her betraying me seemed impossible. But with every passing day, I couldn't ignore the growing feeling that something was off. It was a Friday evening when everything came crashing down. Rachel had been particularly distant all day, distracted, lost in her own thoughts. She kept avoiding me, making excuses to stay busy, leaving me with nothing but my growing suspicion and the pain in my chest that had been building for weeks. That's when I saw it. Rachel went into the kitchen to start dinner, leaving her phone unattended on the couch. My heart pounded in my chest as I stared at the device, almost as if it was calling to me. I knew I shouldn't do it. I knew I should leave it alone, but my hands moved of their own accord. I picked up the phone, my hands shaking as I unlocked it, praying I wouldn't find anything. But I wasn't that lucky. As I scrolled through the messages, I felt my world shatter. There it was, clear as day, proof of an affair. The texts were intimate, filled with affection, promises, and plans. My hands went numb as I read the words over and over again. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My wife, the woman I had shared my life with, the one I thought I knew better than anyone, had been seeing someone else for the past 3 months. I dropped the phone back onto the couch, the noise of it landing on the cushion a sharp contrast to the deafening silence in my head. I stood there for a moment, trying to collect myself, but the anger, the betrayal, it was all too much. It was suffocating me. I walked into the kitchen, where Rachel was stirring a pot on the stove, her back to me. She didn't even hear me enter. When she turned around, the guilt was written all over her face. Her eyes were filled with shame, but she didn't say a word. I didn't have to ask. I already knew. The silence hung in the air like a thick fog, suffocating us both. My heart was pounding in my chest as I stood there, staring at her. My mind raced, but all I could hear was the echo of those words, the promises she had made to someone else. I opened my mouth to say something, but no words came out. Finally, Rachel broke the silence, her voice trembling with fear. "Ethan, I can explain. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear any more excuses, any more justifications. I wanted to understand why she had done this, why she had betrayed me so completely. But I couldn't bring myself to listen to the lies anymore. I just needed to know why." "Why?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "What do you have to say for yourself?" Rachel's shoulders sagged, and she looked down at the floor, her eyes filled with tears. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I made a mistake. It was a mistake, I swear. It didn't mean anything, Ethan. It was just what?" I interrupted, finally allowing the anger to take over. "Was I not enough for you? Was I not good enough? You have a family, a husband who loves you, and you still—" She broke down, sobbing uncontrollably, her face buried in her hands. "I never meant for it to go this far. I never meant to hurt you, but it didn't matter." Her words were hollow now. Nothing, she said, could undo the damage that had already been done, the trust that had been broken beyond repair. That night, we barely spoke. I couldn't sleep, not a wink. I stayed on the couch, the images of the texts replaying in my mind like a broken record. Rachel stayed in our bed, curled up under the covers, crying herself to sleep. I stayed awake, consumed by a storm of anger and heartbreak, not knowing how to move forward, not knowing what I was supposed to do next. The days after were a blur. I tried to go through the motions of normal life work, chores, eating dinner together, but everything felt off. Every time I looked at Rachel, all I could see was the woman who had betrayed me. Every touch felt foreign. Every word she spoke seemed like a lie. The anger wasn't gone. The hurt wasn't gone. It was too fresh, too raw, and I didn't know how to move forward. Should I stay? Should I leave? Should I try to save the marriage, or was it already too broken to fix? There were too many questions, too many emotions, and not enough answers. All I knew was that I couldn't stay in this place, stuck between hurt and betrayal. I had to decide what I was going to do next. A week after the confrontation with Rachel, I found myself sitting at a bar with a few old friends. They were people I hadn't seen in years before I got married, before everything in my life became a whirlwind of betrayal and confusion. It wasn't that I needed advice, in fact. I wasn't sure what I needed. I wasn't looking for a fix to the mess I was in. I just needed to get out of the house, to escape the weight of the silence and the questions that lingered in the air. It was a chance to breathe again, even if just for a few hours. The bar was busy, filled with the buzz of conversations and the clinking of glasses, but my mind was 1,000 miles away. The smell of stale beer and fried food wasn't enough to distract me from the storm swirling inside my head. But as I sat there, nursing a drink, I saw her. Monica. Monica, my old college friend. She was the one who had a way of making everything feel lighter. She was full of life, carefree, and always made you feel like you mattered. She had this energy, this warmth, that seemed to draw people in. And somehow, in the chaos of the past few years, we had lost touch. Life had happened, marriage, work, all the usual excuses. But now, there she was, standing at the bar, looking just as vibrant as I remembered. She caught my eye, and a smile spread across her face. She walked over to me, her heels clicking softly against the floor. "Ethan, is that you?" she said, her voice full of surprise and excitement. I stood up, and we hugged, the kind of hug that felt familiar, comforting. For a brief moment, I felt like myself again. The person I used to be, before everything became about Rachel and the wreckage of my life. We ordered drinks, and she caught me up on what I'd missed in her life, while I did my best to play along, only half listening. My mind kept drifting back to the mess I had left behind at home, but there was something about Monica that made it easier to forget, if just for a little while. As the night wore on, the conversation shifted. Monica asked about Rachel, her tone curious but not invasive. I hesitated. It wasn't something I wanted to talk about. Not here, not now. But as I looked at Monica, something in her expression made me feel safe, as though I could finally let my guard down. "She's not the same person I married," I said, my voice quiet but steady. "I don't even know who she is anymore." Monica looked at me, her eyes full of empathy. "What happened, Ethan?" And just like that, the floodgates opened. I hadn't planned on it, but the words tumbled out. The betrayal, the lies, the anger and the sadness I had been carrying for so long. I didn't want to say it out loud, didn't want to relive it, but the alcohol, the relief of having someone who cared, made me spill it all. I told her everything: the affair, the hurt, the devastation that had taken over my life. "I don't know what to do," I said, my voice breaking for the first time in a week. "I feel like I've lost everything. I don't even know who I am anymore." Monica didn't interrupt. She just listened, her face soft and kind. When I finished, there was a long pause, as if the weight of my words hung in the air between us. Then she reached across the table and placed her hand on mine, her touch gentle but firm. "Ethan, you don't have to figure this out alone. You're not alone." Those words hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't just the kindness in her voice. It was the fact that someone was willing to be there for me, to help me carry the burden. I realized then that I didn't have to suffer in silence. I didn't have to bear the weight of this betrayal on my own. Maybe I couldn't fix everything, but I could start by taking control of my own life, by confronting the truth and moving forward. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. The hangover was there, but so was something else, a spark, a drive. I didn't know exactly what the future held, but I knew one thing. I couldn't keep living in the shadows of Rachel's betrayal. I needed to face it, confront it, and take control of my own future. The pain and anger would still be there, but I couldn't let it define me any longer. That evening, I told Rachel that I needed to talk. She knew, deep down, that something was coming. She knew this conversation wasn't going to be a calm, quiet one. When I said it, I saw the fear in her eyes, the way her body tensed. It was as if she knew, without a doubt, that this was the end of everything. We sat in the living room, the silence thick between us. It was as if the house itself held its breath, waiting for what was coming next. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, trying to gather the strength I knew I needed. "I can't do this anymore," I said. My voice was firm, even though my heart was pounding in my chest. "I can't live like this. The trust is gone. The love is gone. I don't know who you are anymore, Rachel, and I don't think I ever will again." Her eyes filled with tears, and she started to cry. "Please, Ethan. Please don't leave me. I'm so sorry. I'll do anything. Just tell me what I can do to fix this." But it was already too late. I had made my decision. I had reached the point where no amount of begging or pleading would change things. The betrayal was too deep. The trust had been shattered beyond repair. "I'm filing for divorce," I said, my voice cold, final. "And I'm taking full custody of the kids. I won't let this affect them anymore. I'll make sure they know the truth, but I won't let you hurt them the way you've hurt me." She collapsed into tears, her sobs desperate. She begged me to reconsider, to try counseling, to work through things. But the truth was, I had already made peace with my decision. There was no going back. There was nothing left to salvage. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice soft but resolute. "But this is over." The divorce wasn't easy. The paperwork, the legal battles, the endless meetings with lawyers, it all dragged on for months. There were days when the weight of everything felt unbearable. I often found myself lying awake at night, replaying the past over and over, wondering where it all went wrong. There were moments when I questioned my decision, when I wondered if I had made a mistake. But as time passed, those moments grew fewer and fewer. Moving on wasn't easy. There were days when I wanted to crawl back into the safety of the past, to pretend none of this had ever happened. But I knew that was impossible. The past was a closed chapter, and I had to look ahead. I had to rebuild my life, even if it meant doing so without Rachel. I learned a painful lesson during that time. Betrayal is never just a simple cut. It leaves scars, deep ones, that can take years to heal. But it also taught me something valuable. No matter how dark things seemed, I had the power to change my life, to redefine who I was. The consequences of betrayal were far-reaching, but they also paved the way for new beginnings. And that was exactly what I needed. I wasn't the same person I was before, but I was starting to realize that maybe that was a good thing. I had the chance to start fresh, to become someone stronger, someone more certain of who I was and what I wanted. And that, in the end, was the greatest gift I could have given myself.